Once upon a time, deep in the emerald embrace of a forgotten jungle, lived a leopard that couldn't see. Now, you might wonder, what kind of leopard is that? A leopard without eyes is just another cat, you might think, good for nothing but napping and mewing. But this leopard was different. His blindness hadn't dulled his spirit or slowed his soul. He moved through the dense undergrowth with a grace that belied his cloudy gaze, never stumbling over roots or crashing into trees. To the people living on the edge of the jungle, to the hunters and gatherers who'd known nothing but the whisper of the wind and the song of the birds, this blind leopard was a puzzle and a mystery. They called him the Shadow Walker. The elders spoke of a time when his eyes were sharp as obsidian and his steps as light as smoke. He was the swiftest hunter in the jungle, the sleekest shade that stalked the sun-dappled paths. But now he was an old soul, a wise spirit, living on borrowed time. And yet the hunters never harmed him. They respected his presence, even revered it, for they had seen him do things that defied explanation, feats that seemed impossible for any creature, let alone a blind one. One day, something shifted in the jungle. The very air grew heavy with unspoken warnings. The birds fell silent, their cheerful tweets replaced by uneasy murmurs. Even the monkeys hid in the thickest parts of the trees, their playful chatter silenced. A heavy stillness blanketed the jungle. It was as though the leaves themselves were holding their breath. It was as if the jungle, too, was afraid. No one understood this change, not the young men who sharpened their spears, nor the women who gathered herbs under the sheltering trees. The shamans, with their deep connection to the spirits of the earth, were no wiser than the rest. There was no tremor in the earth, no ill omens in the skies, no whispers on the wind to guide them. Yet Deep Shadow Walker stirred from his usual slumber. He stretched, feeling the familiar ache in his old bones and the unsettling hum in the jungle. He didn't know what it was, but he knew it was important. He rose, his cloudy eyes unseeing, and began to move. As the day wore on and Deep Shadow Walker made his way through the undergrowth, a sense of unease tightened its grip on the villagers. It was as if the silence of the jungle was screaming at them. Their instincts screamed at them, urging them to flee, to pack their meager belongings and run from the whispering trees. But they hesitated. Their lives were rooted in that jungle. Fleeing would mean leaving their homes, their families, their graves behind. Then Deep Shadow Walker did something that made the hunters pause. He emerged from the jungle not far from the village, his head held high, his tail swaying like a banner in a phantom breeze. He looked like an apparition, a specter of the forest come to warn them. The villagers froze, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. What did the Shadow Walker want? Was the jungle truly in danger? Were they all in peril? But then he did the unexpected. Instead of staying, instead of warning them with a ferocious snarl or a piercing stare, he turned slowly, majestically, and disappeared back into the green abyss. The hunters were stunned. They stood there, their bows slipping from their grasp, their arrows rolling into the tall grass, until the last vestiges of the leopard's form vanished into the thickening foliage. They were left with the sound of their own pounding hearts and the unnerving quiet of the jungle. Should they follow the blind beast into the heart of the unknown, trust their instincts and flee, or should they stay put, ignoring the growing unease in their chests and the foreboding whispers on the wind? Some wanted to stay, to cling to the familiarity of their homes, but more driven by an instinct older than fear, decided to follow Deep Shadow Walker. The hunters, along with a few of the bravest villagers, slipped out of their homes, their steps hushed, their eyes darting from side to side. They moved as silently as phantoms, trying not to break the spell that had fallen over the jungle. They walked behind the blind leopard, step by step, hour by hour, deeper and deeper into the emerald labyrinth. They followed him past familiar trees, over babbling brooks, and around moss-covered stones. None spoke a word. There was no need for words. Their senses were heightened, tuned to the symphony of the forest, attuned to the heartbeat of the earth. The leopard never looked back, didn't glance over his shoulder, nor did he quicken his pace or falter in his steps. He walked steadily, purposefully, as if leading them to a haven he had seen long ago. After what felt like an eternity, Deep Shadow Walker paused. He sniffed the air, twitched his whiskers, then turned and climbed onto a nearby boulder. From here, his keen ears could hear better, his sensitive nose smell more deeply, His rough tongue could taste the subtle flavors of the wind. He looked out over the land he had traversed with his unlikely followers. Below him, winding like a silver ribbon, was a stream the villagers knew well. Beyond the stream, nestled between rolling hills, lay a valley bathed in the golden hues of sunset. It was a place they had visited often, a place of peace and beauty, a place of safety. With a low rumble in his throat, he leaped from the boulder, not missing the solid ground below his paws. He turned again and began his descent into the valley, walking slowly, as if savoring every step. The hunters exchanged glances, their eyes filled with wonder and gratitude. The leopard had led them not to a new place, but to a familiar one, a place of safety, yet they knew it was no accident. The jungle had spoken to them through the leopard, guiding them to where they needed to be. And as darkness fell and the stars pricked the velvet sky, they made camp beside the murmuring stream. Their fear replaced by awe and respect for the blind leopard who had led them here. Throughout the night, the sounds of the jungle grew louder, more insistent, as if the trees themselves were rejoicing. And in the morning, when the sun chased away the shadows and revealed the extent of the damage, the villagers understood the depth of their debt to the blind leopard. The river that had been their lifeline was now a raging torrent, swollen and dangerous. The bridge that had connected them to the outside world was washed away, leaving them stranded. The once familiar jungle was now a menacing maze, a labyrinth of tangled vines and fallen trees. Yet they were safe in the valley, untouched by the rising waters, unharmed by the fury of the storm. And as the days passed and the waters receded, revealing the path of destruction in their wake, they knew they owed it all to the blind leopard. He had saved them without sight, guided them without vision, protected them in ways they couldn't comprehend. When the villagers returned to their homes, which were now mere ruins surrounded by debris, they found a single white feather resting on the threshold of what was once their shelter. It was a silent thank you from the leopard, a token of gratitude from the jungle. As for the blind leopard, he vanished into the emerald depths as silently as he had appeared, leaving behind only echoes of his legend. The villagers never forgot him. They told stories of his bravery and wisdom around their new fires, making sure his memory lived on in every telling. And whenever a young child looked up at the stars, lost in dreams of adventure and courage, they knew that somewhere out there, unseen, unheard, but always present, the blind leopard was watching over them, his spirit as eternal as the jungle itself. They wondered, how did he know about the flood? The answer, lost in the heart of the ancient woods, was carried by the wind. The trees whispered among themselves, sharing secrets older than time, tales of bravery, loss, and unwavering spirit. And there, nestled in the crook of an ancient banyan tree, lived a wise old owl. Her feathers were the color of moonlight, her eyes pools of ancient wisdom. She had witnessed countless seasons, countless stories unfold beneath the canopy of the jungle. One day, a young girl, her eyes bright with curiosity, approached the owl's tree. She had heard the stories of the blind leopard, and she wanted to know more. She sat quietly at the base of the tree, her gaze fixed on the moon-dappled ground, waiting for the owl to speak. "Wise owl," she began, her voice barely a whisper, "how did the blind leopard know about the flood?" The owl hooted softly, her gaze distant, as if seeing things the girl couldn't. "Ah, child," she finally said, her voice raspy with age. "There are things the jungle teaches that humans cannot unlearn." She looked at the girl, her eyes twinkling with amusement. "You see, the jungle speaks in many ways. Sometimes it's in the rustle of leaves, sometimes in the patter of rain, sometimes it's in the very tremor of the earth." "But the leopard," the girl pressed, "how did he know?" The owl closed her eyes, remembering. He knew because he listened. He listened to the way the wind sang through the tall grasses, to the murmur of the earth before the rains came, to the cries of the birds that sensed the coming storm. He heard what we could not. She opened her eyes, their depths holding galaxies unseen by human eyes. He heard because he was still. He quieted his soul to listen to the whispers of the jungle, to the heartbeat of the earth. And so he knew. The girl pondered this, realizing the wisdom in the owl's words. Sometimes, she thought, we are so busy listening to the noise of our own making that we forget to hear the whispers of the world around us. "So you're saying," she asked, tilting her head, The leopard was more attuned to the jungle? Indeed, the owl replied, her voice a soft hoot. He was one with the jungle, child, and in that oneness lay his wisdom. The girl sat quietly absorbing the owl's words. She realized that the true magic of the jungle lay not in its beauty or its bounty, but in its spirit, its ability to speak to those who were willing to listen. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, the girl thanked the wise old owl and returned to her village, carrying with her the echoes of ancient wisdom and the memory of a blind leopard who could hear what no one else could. And so the tale of the blind leopard became a parable, a reminder that sometimes the greatest truths are hidden in plain sight, waiting for us to quiet our minds and open our hearts to the symphony of the universe.